So, um, talk a little bit about uh, how coaching has helped an individual or an organization achieve something really meaningful.
Great question. One of the things that I think about in coaching is how can you have that impact, right? And earlier this year, I had a chance to work with somebody who we had an entire perspective shift. And to me, that's a critical piece of coaching. It's helping people to see things in a different perspective, from a different angle. And this person was fearful of talking to somebody who was their superior, talking up the chain, so to speak. And they had some tremendous ideas. We had to focus on articulating them, envisioning them, getting them to see that what they wanted to say did have a purpose and could matter and could influence. And that just helped them to build confidence. And as we talked through that, I could see the confidence in the client growing to the point then we made the big jump where they actually went and had the conversation. And it turned out to be very impactful and very beneficial. And they received positive feedback on it in a way that they never envisioned somebody would listen to them like that.
Mm, incredible result. What do you love about coaching, Jim?
I love the different people. I've always been somebody who's liked to talk to people and, most importantly, listen to people and hear what they have to say and help them figure out why are we having this conversation, right? So when I started my professional life, I was an attorney for a few years, got into coaching. A lot of people don't see that mix, right? Like, how did you make that jump? I think it's very straightforward. We're dealing with people and we're working with them to get from point A to point B. And in the legal field, it's obviously understandable. There's a defined result that you want to get. In coaching, it's a little less defined, but I think it's even more powerful because we are taking ideas that people have. We are taking even situations where they don't have the idea. They come to coaching, they're not sure what it is, but we start talking about where do they want to go? What's important to them? What are their values? Where would they like to go personally, professionally? And then we start to mold that into something that is a plan or a process. And then through accountability and coaching and the movement of repetition and time, we actually get them moving in a very positive direction. And I think that's where, that's what I find most valuable about this.
Mm. And if you think about a recent coaching engagement where there's been a real breakthrough, could you talk about one specific example recently where you've witnessed some significant shift in how they've been thinking or something that they've implemented?
One comes to mind very vividly. One of our clients recently made some changes, and some people had to re-engineer what they wanted to do, right? Move to a different department, relocate within the organization. This person came to the call and she was, I don't know, just baffled about what to do. This did not register with her. She had been working, for a long time. Everything was like straightforward and steady. And she was right in this lane. And she saw no way to even, like, how to even address the lane being disrupted, right? Not just like what to do, but that this could even happen.
Mm.
We had to spend some time getting our thoughts and heads wrapped around that and saying, okay, this happened. Let's take a look at it. Let's figure out where we are. And then let's figure out what some opportunities are around this, right? Could we go over this way? Could we go over that way? As it turned out, she had always, one day I'm like, what if you had no limitations? What would be something you'd want to do? And in actuality, she wanted to start her own type of business. And she had some ideas, but she never felt that it had any merit or value or anything like that. So we started to talk about that, plan it. And she felt that she did not live in an area that would support this. We began to talk, and I found this out through coaching that you've got a whole world to deal with. you're not bound by who lives in your simple geography anymore. The whole world is your potential marketplace.
Mm.
And as it turned out, she ended up after a few months being very satisfied with where this was going. She saw for the first time in her life that she wouldn't have to be necessarily like an employee in a specific lane, but could shift over here and be in charge of her own future and her own destiny in terms of her career. And that was life changing in her words. She never felt that that was going to be something that was for somebody else, right? Oh, that's not for me. That's for people over here that think bigger. That's not for me. But in the end, she was somebody who thought bigger. And I was strictly sort of a guide and an ally along the way. She's the one that had the ideas. We just helped sort of form them and bring them together.
There's so much in coaching that's about sponsorship and advocacy and helping people see who they are from another perspective that they don't see in themselves. They've kind of diminished their right to be able to do certain things.
1,000%. And we don't know why that is, right? And I think, I've certainly done it myself to myself at some point, and my hunch is a lot of people have. But what coaching represents is a chance for a fresh start on that and a
Mm.
new view and engaging an ally that will help you start to peel that back a little bit and not worry so much about why it happened, why you have these ideas, why you feel like you're stuck here, but thinking about, okay, here we are now. What are we going to do about that, right? What are our assets? What's positive? What are the challenges? What are the speed bumps that we're going to have to navigate along the way? And then how do we start to bring that together in a way that allows you to look forward and think about things in a forward looking manner?
So would you say if we were to demystify coaching and talk about what is it that a coach does, would you say that they're the steps that we take people through on their journey?
I definitely would, Pam. I think from my perspective, I talk about three stages, right? Three steps. The first step is let's think about where are you right now, right? Let's spend some time getting to know each other. Let's talk about, if it's job satisfaction, if it's personal health, whatever the topic is. What do you have right now that's good, right? What's positive? What are the pluses on the piece of paper, right? And let's think about how we may need to leverage those going forward. But let's also talk about the minuses. What are the challenges? What are the hurdles? What are the obstacles? Whether they are, how you envision something, whether they're financial, whether they're physical, like what are those negatives or hurdles so that we have a good picture of where are we right now. I think the second stage then is figuring out where do you want to go and how do we get there. So coming up with a vision, a plan, an idea for the future. And it's not going to be carved in stone the first day. We're going to morph and change this as we go. But we've got to have some kind of North Star that we look towards, or just like on a roadmap, you're not going to have any idea where you're going. We've got to develop a map and start to figure out what steps are we going to take to move there, right? And that's part of coaching. I'm going to hold the person responsible and accountable in the calls. Are you moving forward on the map?
Mm.
And then I think the third piece is the one that perhaps gets overlooked the most. And that's how do we stay with the success? How do we maintain that success? A lot of people can create success for a small period of time, whether it's in their business life, their personal life. I think the differentiator is can you stay there?
Mm.
Do you have a support network around you that allows you to maintain that success? Do you have processes in place, personal processes, to help you keep that success so that you don't fall back? And I think that sort of three-part process of figuring out where you are now, then determining where you want to go and how you get there, and then thirdly, how you stay there, to me represents the coaching journey
Yeah.
from a large perspective.
You alluded to it at the start of what you just said there, Jim, but what are some of the frequent topics or subjects or challenges that people bring to coaching?
Great question. I think a lot of people have, they don't grasp what the possibilities are, right? So they want to make a job change, for instance. That to me is probably, I won't say job change, I'll say a change within their job. A lot of times it's, I am a newly promoted leader and I'm not actually sure what to do now in this new service line. Or now I've gone from an individual contributor to a team leader of 10 people. And, and like they get sort of quiet. I honestly am not sure quite what to do.
Mm.
So that's where we help figure out, how to get that vision, how to influence people, how to develop that team. And I think that would probably be the singular sort of general topic, is how to be a more effective performer at work. I think that's often why companies bring people to coaching. It's to help them get more satisfaction and more effectiveness at work.
Mm.
But I think intertwined with that is what I would call the second biggest topic that comes up, and that is personal effectiveness, personal wellness. When I started coaching a couple decades ago, one of the first things I noticed was the influence of people's personal wellness and processes with regard to work. They couldn't understand why they were tired and they couldn't think straight. And then they started talking about, well, I've got to work 18 hours a day, and I don't take any time for myself, and I'm not eating right, and I don't take any time for activity. And I saw how integrated personal wellness and job success and work success are. So that's where I went ahead and got some additional wellness certifications in coaching. And I think when appropriate, I don't hesitate to bring that in and ask people, what are you doing for yourself?
Mm.
Let's not talk about maybe what you're doing for the company right now. Let's talk about, are you taking care of yourself so that you will be more effective in your job and in your career, and you'll be more satisfied. You'll feel better. You'll have a positive outlook. There's so
Mm.
many things to be positive and thankful for, but a lot of times people don't see that because they're so micro focused on the tasks that are right in front of them. Let's look
Yeah.
at that bigger picture.
Some people don't know how to get started with coaching. And that it could be for a number of reasons. They just don't know what to talk to a coach about. They don't know how to articulate everything that's in their heads. It may be that they're feeling nervous or apprehensive or a bit bewildered, or they're too busy. What's, with all of your experience, what makes for a good start in coaching?
I had an experience this week that I think points to that very, very, very nicely. And above all, people ask me like, tell me about who you are as a coach. I try to be super approachable and relatable. And I have said to people, they've heard me say this for years, I can talk to anybody, I can listen to anybody about any topic. I had a guy come to me this week in a coaching situation, and he was very reluctant. I could tell at first he expected me to take the lead and sort of tell him, this is what we're going to talk about. And I said, just tell me about yourself. Just start to talk. Let me listen. You tell me, why did you sign up for this? What brought you here? And as it turned out, he had read some books. He had taken this step, which to him was huge, of reading what he called self-help books, right? Just to start to get a little bit of insight into how to change some behaviors and some focus he wanted to change in some relationships. And, I stressed that our relationship is confidential. He could share whatever he wanted to. And he started talking about, all these things over his whole life. And he really wouldn't stop. It made me sort of smile at one point because for somebody who came to the call, I'm not sure what to talk about. I have nothing to say. I'm the one that ended up having to like help him hit the pause button for a minute and ask some further questions, clarify, find out a little more about where he wanted to go with this. But in the process, Pam, that help him recognize that he had a lot of wonderful assets going on. and inside he had the tools and the information. He had the information he needed. He had the knowledge he needed. What I was going to help him do was develop the tools to make those more effective. And I
Yeah.
think that was it made me feel so good this week. That was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it, that at that moment that you're really genuinely sat with someone that gives you permission to talk and says, I'm here and I'm present and I've nowhere to go. That in that kind of real moment of validation where people go, okay, I feel safe now, I feel happy, I feel as though actually I can just talk. Then it's that outpouring is quite incredible in terms of what it does for people's understanding of what's at play. You almost need to be allowed to say it out loud to then understand what it is that you want to work on.
It's exactly right. And one of the things that I've learned in working with you over the last couple of years and with Thrive is the whole concept of, and I'll call it democratizing coaching, bringing coaching to people who in their own minds may not feel that they're sort of, this is for me, right? Oh, that's for the people that are up in the C-suite, or that's for my manager or director. That's not for me. And I think what we have found is that every single person benefits from it.
Mm,
And every person can find topics and ideas that help them to gain greater clarity into what they want to achieve.
mm,
And I think even in many cases, even for the first time for some folks, they're able to have a conversation like this.
mm,
There may be, people that are in leadership that have done this before and they've had opportunities and their company has provided, oh, you're in leadership, you should get coaching. I think what we've talked about before is for some of the folks we might talk to, it's the first time they've had an experience with this. And
mm.
maybe in their life they've worked super hard, they've had some success, but they've never quite been able to get over a hurdle or two. And when what we allow to happen is to get over those hurdles and to sort of open that next door into the next room and start to see, oh my gosh, like look at what's in this room. I never thought I was going to be able to go in that room. And here they are.
And you've coached thousands and thousands of people in your 20 years. Do you have a sense of the attributes of someone who's successful in their coaching relationship? How do people need to show up?
People need to show up curious. And that sounds, like that's something you and I have said a million times, but I think it's very true. And I think you have to want to come to it, right? This isn't something where somebody's like on a performance plan and they say, go get coaching, right? And I've had people like that in other engagements, and you have too. What we're doing is we are taking people who are curious and who want to know what is in that next room, right? How do I open that door? I think curiosity is at the heart of this. And I think we as coaches are naturally curious, and through our training and experience have honed that curiosity and have built on that so that it proves valuable to people. But it has to be integrated with a curious client, right? We just can't use our curiosity against, somebody who doesn't want to have some interest and curiosity into their own life. I would say that is by far and away the most important initial attribute.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. And for them to decide that they can put themselves first, you know, this one of the challenges for many of us is we're so used to putting ourselves as human beings last in the queue with everything else that we've got to do. You
Yes,
almost a moment in time where you say, actually, I'm important too, and I want to get to this now.
absolutely. And, I'll talk to clients about like, this is an opportunity to hit the pause button. People will say, well, I'm so busy, I don't have time to schedule a session. And to me, that is exactly why we should schedule a session, right? You
Mm,
have to hit the pause button. You have to stick your head up above the fray
mm.
and be intentional about what you want to do.
Yeah. So on that, how long does it usually take for people to get results or see results from coaching?
Ooh, that's a powerful question. It has many different responses. I would say in the first couple sessions, you are going to, like, I like to use the first session as an intro session. They get to know me, I get to know them, we get to see styles. We talk about confidentiality, we talk about, no prohibition on topics. We can cover whatever, they're not sent here by the company. We have to only talk about specific tasks that the company wants you to talk about, right? We are open to talking about a wide variety of things, and I think that sort of it's like a short story, right? The first paragraph or so sets the stage, then you get into the story itself. And I think when you get into the story itself, then based on the curiosity and enthusiasm and engagement of the client, I think you can start to see results very, very quickly. They can start to get clarity on where they want to go and what they want to do. I think there are times certainly where then determining where that impact is and how that impacts takes longer, right? They may have a brilliant idea in their head, like we all do, right? Every idea we've got is going to change the world. But it takes a little while longer sometimes for other people to see that and for the wheels to turn to get to where they are impactful.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and certainly, what we've learnt is even with these powerful 30-minute coaching conversations, you want to be planning on at least four conversations to start this momentum and to get this real understanding of just what you as an individual are capable of. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something that's sticky to your point. How do you make it sticky and lasting, and how do you embed the habit or the mindset that you allowed it, you can do it, and it's repetitive?
The 30-minute sessions are fantastic because there are people who come to this, and I've spoken to just general people, tell me what you do for a living. I talk about it and stuff. How can you have a powerful conversation in 30 minutes? And
Mm,
I think number one, we have, as professional coaches, focused on doing that, right? That's the trade we're in. So we know how to sort of move the conversation forward. I
mm,
think secondly, we learn to work in that time frame, excuse me, because that's what helps the client gain some additional focus.
yeah,
It's not a lingering conversation over 2 hours with coffee, right? Which I'm not against by any stretch, but we've got to focus here, and it makes the opportunity for me to ask what I would call powerful questions,
mm,
engaging questions, questions that draw out the client's thought process into the present and help them think about it right now. Not, well,
mm,
let's talk about that the next time, but like, let's talk about that right now. We have X minutes left. That doesn't mean we start wrapping things up. That still gives us time to have that powerful opportunity for questions.
mm. If you could give somebody a step that they could take today to start thinking like a coach or exploring their potential, what would be the question or the invitation you'd give to someone?
I would probably phrase it in a simple way, like think about what's possible. And to do that, put aside all the constraints that you think you currently have, whether they are, financial or location or, company wide or whatever. Just put that aside for a minute. Let's just play for a minute in a conversation and talk about what would be possible for you. What would you like to see? And I think for some people, Pam, and I always find this very, very powerful and even emotional. It's often the first time they've had a conversation like that.
Mm,
And they may have talked to their spouse or their neighbor or their friend at work or something, their buddy at the gym, but they've never had an intentional conversation like this. It's
mm,
come up in casual talk, but it's never been professionally focused like we bring it.
mm.
And I think that's what separates coaching from sort of, talking to the person down the street. It's we are intentional and we bring the desire to help them move forward. And
Yeah,
to me, that's sort of how I approach it.
yeah, yeah. Um, if someone feels stuck, and they are hesitant to seek help, um, what advice would you give them to in regard to how they can best make a positive change?
I would say, give it a try, right? Like schedule a session. Let's at least talk, and
Mm,
let's give me as a coach the opportunity to hear what you have to say.
mm,
And in that process, maybe we start to get a foothold on, here is some new territory we can claim, right?
mm,
Until they try it, they are not going to know the opportunity and possible success that they have.
mm. Yeah, give it a go. My dad used to say to me, Pam, try everything once. Don't say no to something until you've tried it. And
Absolutely.
that's
And
been
that,
been a good motto for me.
oh, it's fantastic. And you and I have had situations in our lives where people have encouraged us to do that. And I think that's amazing, and it's been life changing for us. But a lot of people don't have that, right? They haven't had that opportunity. And
Mm,
I don't say that as like, somebody's intentionally tried to keep them back or anything, but it just hasn't materialized for them. They've been busy over here on the side, doing work and living life.
mm,
So coaching represents a chance to I guess I'll say step back from that, and have some private space to talk to somebody in a very relatable and hopefully engageable fashion, where
mm,
they are able to start to have some very powerful conversations.
mm, mm. 20 years a coach, what keeps you motivated and inspired to keep on being a coach?
I would have to say it's people.
Mm,
And people are, every day is fascinating because people are just amazing. And I think the opportunity and possibility that they bring to something, particularly when they didn't know they had it in them, is what is great.
mm,
And things change, right? Like circumstances change. We got through COVID, and I talked to many people about resilience and refocus and job shifting. People, I now talk to many, you and I are used to working online. I talked to many people that had never done this before. This was like speaking a foreign language, and it opened up their world in such a way that was life altering.
mm,
So I think over time you have to be aware of, which I am, sort of the outside influences,
mm,
whether it's, an economic boom or bust, or whether it's like a COVID situation where people's changes, the work style has changed, or whether it's keeping pace with technology and
mm,
understanding that, you've got to harness technology in many cases to make yourself more engaged and valuable at work and in life. The outside influences often come in and help, provide a context for the coaching to take place.
mm. And it's a reciprocal relationship. So what I find when I coach is I learn stuff from my clients. You get an alternative map of the world, an alternative way in which people see things, and it almost holds a mirror back to me as well. That goes, that's really interesting. That's a different way. I hadn't thought about doing it that way. So there's a reciprocity in the relationship. Although we're hugely capable in terms of our linguistic capability and the way in which we can drive and create clarity and focus and momentum, it's certainly not a one-way street.
I love the way you say that in terms of, it is not a one-way street. And I have learned, I guess I'd say sort of two areas, right? Like I've learned style differences, and I've learned about, relationship approaches, and I've learned all this sort of coaching type stuff. And I've also thoroughly enjoyed learning about different industries, like the pragmatic piece of it. Oh, this is what I do. I work, overseas for this company, or this is what I do here. Things that I never thought I would learn anything about. And that helps increase my curiosity in the process as well. Put myself alongside them at their workplace.
What have you learnt about yourself as a coach in that time?
I've learned to stay very flexible and adaptive. And and I talk about processes and I talk about having a process, but that is so flexible, and it has to be, because what works with one person doesn't work with another person. So I don't have, and professional coaches don't have sort of, here's my, listen to these audio tapes and come back to me next week and we'll talk further, right? This is a bespoke situation where we're talking to each person in a way that benefits them in particular. And I think I have learned about myself to be very cognizant and aware of that, and
Mm.
to allow that change and that adaptation to take place, and sort of, the old coaching term, like dance in the moment, be with the client in that space. And that keeps me alert, and it keeps me curious, and it keeps me on my toes.
Yeah. So, my final question to you is about coaching that you've received. And it's about a moment that you've had where somebody said something to you and it stayed with you as a life lesson. It's a mantra or a motto, it's a code, it's a rule, it's something that you come back to as do you have what's a moment of clarity that someone said something to you?
I have a colleague that I work with, and he and I talk pretty routinely. We go back and forth on some clients. I've helped him on some projects. And he said to me a couple years ago, and it was sort of short and sweet and simple, but it has stuck with me. You don't realize the impact you have on people.
Mm.
Because we'd gotten some client feedback, and to me it was, I'll say, business as usual, right? It was coaching, day-to-day coaching. To this person, it was transformative, and they reported back in a completion form that they did about how I changed, helped them change their trajectory of their life. And my colleague said, you don't realize the impact that you have. And I think that has stuck with me as both humbling, right? I'm very appreciative of that, but also empowering, because it allows me to then go forward and have even, continued and greater impact.
Mm. What an amazing profession we have, Jim.
I love it, Pam, and I love being on board with Thrive.
Do you ever wish you were an attorney again?
Do I?
Ever wish you'd stayed an
No,
attorney?
not a day. No. I'm having too much fun and impact on other stuff now.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you for having me, Pam.